Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about government policy and human rights.
Investigations are ongoing, and the Minister will share all that we learned in the appropriate moment. But we're taking this extremely seriously because Canadians need to have confidence in our immigration system and on the millions of people who've come here over the past years to build a better life for themselves and their future. We need to make sure everything is done to keep Canadians safe.
Is the issue that you are not sure as to how this person came to Canada, or just not willing to share at this point what you know?
We are proceeding in a proper and thorough investigation on exactly how this happened, and we will share with Canadians at the appropriate moment.
Trudeau's destroyed our entire immigration system, and he has expanded the temporary foreign worker program by well over 200% at a time when we're losing jobs. When I was responsible for that program, in 2015, we had only 60,000 temporary foreign workers. Now, it's close to 200,000, and on top of that, you have international students who are effectively temporary foreign workers that came under the wrong stream. Our temporary foreign worker program should only be available to fill jobs that employers have proven beyond a doubt cannot be filled by Canadians. It should never be used to bring in low-wage workers from poor countries to take jobs away from or suppress the wages of Canadians.
All right, well, welcome back to Policy and Rights here on Depictions Media Radio. I'm your host, Michael Clogs, and we just heard, let's see, who can blame the other side first, sort of thing. Apparently, a alleged member of ISIS made it into Canada through immigration, and of course, there is a huge investigation into who this person really is and how they actually got into Canada. And Justin Trudeau denying any sort of mishaps and saying we need to investigate, and he will reveal to the public at the appropriate time when he knows more. Same story. A different page. Not even sure. Maybe it's only a different paragraph with the Liberal government, that they never seem to really know what's going on, but they're in charge of the country. Okay. So along with that, we heard from Mr. Poilievre as he criticizes how the Liberal government is running immigration, and that their policies are destroying the jobs that are here in Canada and giving them away to immigrants from poor countries. So, name-calling, blaming, the usual game for both Mr. Poilievre and Mr. Trudeau. Neither one seems to be able to take responsibility for what they're really doing for Canada. So I just thought we should start off with that rather than me doing my introduction first. We are going to hear more from Justin Trudeau as he was at a Goodyear plant and talking about job security and, of course, all right, we're talking about job security and Justin Trudeau, of course, saying that the Conservative government will never invest into ensuring that jobs are secure for the middle class and for the working class people. That they would never invest into any type of program that would ensure that jobs can stay in Canada. Of course, we're back to the blame game again with that. It's the only thing that Mr. Poilievre and Mr. Trudeau know how to do is blame each other for the problems that are happening in Canada. Well, Mr. Trudeau, you are actually in charge of Canada. You are the Prime Minister. You have the responsibility, not the ability to blame Mr. Poilievre. And it is true that the Conservative government, they don't have a better plan for how to help the middle class with the high rates of inflation that we are seeing right now. So, by blaming Mr. Trudeau for everything that is happening, he is shielding himself from the idea that, well, he doesn't know what to do either. So, and what is it that we might actually see happen that will help the economy and help bring a little more life security to what is actually happening with inflation and the high prices and everything that we are actually experiencing. So why don't we move forward to we do have another segment where homeless vets, and there's an organization out there that is helping homeless vets, and they got a visit from the Minister of Housing, Federal Minister of Housing, and they are celebrating the work that they do to actually find help, homes, and maybe some sort of prosperity for those who defended the country of Canada. They went abroad, fought a war, whatever it was that was asked of them by our government and by us as citizens. And with that, we do actually have a responsibility to these people to ensure that when they come back, that they are celebrated for what they did. They did it regardless of their political feelings. They did their job regardless of our public opinions. They did it because they are stand-up citizens and wanted to do something special to defend the country that we call Canada, the land that we live on and have a democratic republic on. And they deserve better than to be living on the streets. So we're going to hear some of that also today. So while we move forward, and let's listen to the Goodyear plant in Ontario as Mr. Trudeau spoke and talked about what it is that the Liberal Party is doing to secure jobs for Canadians. If he is. helping Canadians find jobs.
Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Laura Duda. I am Senior Vice President and Chief Communications Officer for Goodyear. Bonjour à tous et bienvenue. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are gathered here today on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Huron-Wendat peoples. Goodyear honors all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples and their contributions to this land. Thank you, merci. It is great to see so many members of Team Goodyear and our government partners gathered here as we mark an important milestone for our company and for Canada. Goodyear has a long, proud history of innovation, job creation, and community building here in Napanee, 36 years to be exact. What we are announcing today will be key to Goodyear's continued growth in Canada and globally. To help us unveil this exciting milestone, I'm pleased to have Goodyear's Global Chief Executive Officer and President, Mark Stewart, here with us. We are also honored to have several federal, provincial, and local leaders joining us who have been strong supporters of manufacturing, advocates for sustainability, and drivers of economic growth for many years, including the Right Honourable Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Mary Ng, Minister of Export Promotions, International Trade and Economic Development, the Honourable Vic Fedeli, Ontario Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, Terry Richardson, Mayor of Napanee, John Wise, Reeve of Stone Mills and Warden of Lennox and Addington County. So welcome, everyone. Without further ado, let's get to the big announcement. Please welcome to the podium Goodyear's Global CEO and President, Mark Stewart.
Okay, so we heard a little bit from Justin Trudeau. We didn't play some of the other speakers. We really wanted to focus more on Justin Trudeau because, you know, he's being accused of tossing away the jobs that Canadians need by Mr. Poilievre, and of course it's accusing Mr. Poilievre of tossing away the same jobs by way of he won't invest into companies that need the money. Okay, so next up, we're going to hear from Housing Minister Sean Fraser, and we're also going to hear from Veteran Affairs Minister Ginette Taylor as they announce an investment of more than $6.7 million to support two programs for veterans in Nova Scotia who are experiencing a high risk of homelessness. The news conference takes place in Dartmouth office of the Veterans Emergency Transition Service, or VETS, and is also attended by the Liberal MP Darren Fisher, the VETS CEO Debbie Lowther, and Landing Strong Cooperative founder, Executive Director Belinda Seagram, as they talk about what our veterans need to come back into civilian life and thrive, not just simply survive the way they are by living on the streets and having to deal with some of the mental and emotional stresses that came back with them when they returned to civilian life.
Everybody seated who's going to sit? All right, folks. Thank you all so much for coming out in such an absolutely beautiful day. We got the 2 or 3 days of rain out of the way. We got the humidity, what feels like most of the humidity, out of the way. And if there are people here that don't live in Dartmouth, by all means hit me up for a real estate business card later. It's not easy to find a place to live in Dartmouth Cole Harbour anymore. We seem to have been the hot new place to live, so you might have a bit of a struggle finding a place, but we'll help you. We'll work on that for you. My name is Darren Fisher, and I live a mile away from here. And to say that Vets Canada is, and I'm singling out Vets Canada for a moment, we're in their beautiful new location, but to say that they're near and dear to my heart is a bit of an exaggeration. They are literally nearer to my heart where I live. Each time they move successively, they were downtown, they moved a little bit uptown, and now they're here on Main at Caledonia, and it's a great new location. And I have to tell you that hiding in the back are the guys that have been working till midnight. So I've been to this building numerous times in various different iterations, but only the second time here at Vets Canada, and they were all here then, and I think they might have been eating brownies and cookies back then as well. But literally, and I don't mean to, overstate the importance of this, but they've done so much in this place in such a short time, and literally we're here until midnight. And the only thing Jim couldn't convince them to do is put up the baseboards. Made you look. I want to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded territory, the Mi'kmaq people, and I want to just acknowledge a few special people in the crowd. Everyone in this crowd is special, so please don't take it wrong when I don't acknowledge you. I've got boilerplate notes in front of me, but I will try to make sure that I do justice to the names on this list. Ginette Petitpas Taylor. We just call her Ginette. We love her. Welcome, Ginette, Minister of Veterans Affairs. Sean Fraser, we also just call him Sean. That's what we do in Atlantic Canada. We don't go by these big fancy titles. I'm Darren, Ginette, Sean, but Sean is the Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities. Debbie Lowther. At the back of the room, looking stunning in this amazing leisure suit, Debbie Lowther. Thanks, Debbie, for hosting us today. Dr. Belinda Seagram, Founder and Executive Director of Landing Strong Cooperative. Welcome. I just destroyed the ears of the media. Sorry about that, folks. This is not good. Oh, and this guy actually kind of likes me. For now. Sorry, bud. Easy for you to do. And also I want to acknowledge the board members of Vets Canada and the board members and volunteers from Landing Strong. Let's give a round of applause for these two incredible groups who do so much important work. As we as a government look to build a better future for all Canadians, we're going to continue to make strategic investments in housing and infrastructure that are critical to supporting Canada's veterans. We've got the Veterans Minister here today, and we've got the Infrastructure Minister here today. And we also have Lena Mettlich-Diab, the Member of Parliament for Halifax West, who I have to say gets out to more important announcements than any other MP that I've met in my nearly 9 years as Member of Parliament. Welcome again, Lena, to Dartmouth Cole Harbour. So I had the notes here with the actual announcement on it, but it's been scratched out, which tells me that you're down here in the pecking order. So we're going to save the announcement for the important ministers. But I do have the words here, so I could be a real spoiler today and start the conversation about what it is that we're here to do today. But I'm a great team player, and I refuse to do that. So without further ado, I would like to ask if you could give your hands a little round of applause for the Honourable Sean Fraser, Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities, who will deliver remarks on behalf of the Government of Canada. Sorry.
Hello and welcome, everyone. Darren, thank you for the kind introduction. And before I get too far, let me just say that you've been an enormous advocate for this organization, Vets Canada, and more broadly for the issue of housing for veterans from the time that we've met. I actually came to learn about the organization through Darren years ago. Subsequent to that, a number of other caucus colleagues, Lena in particular, and Daryl Sampson, I should acknowledge, have been tremendous advocates for the work that Vets Canada and other organizations do. I also want to say thank you to Vets Canada in particular for allowing us to be here in your space today to share some important news for your organization, but more importantly for the people that you serve. And to Landing Strong, who I'm just getting familiar with more recently, the work that you do is so important on an issue that's near and dear to my heart that I've been working on a number of years, which is to support veterans and first responders who are struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder or operational stress injuries, as the case may be. But today we want to talk a little bit around some of the work that these organizations can do to help integrate members into their community, particularly by providing supports to ensure that some of our most vulnerable have housing options made available to them. We are living through a housing crisis across Canada and here in Nova Scotia. It reveals itself in very human ways in different parts of the country. You see young people who are priced out of the market due to the rising cost of rent. It's increasingly difficult for people to be able to afford a home in the community where they grew up. But I can't help but think we will never get to a point where we can say we've solved the housing crisis if some of our most vulnerable continue to go to bed without a place to call home every night. Homelessness does not impact all of us equally. There are different people, different groups within our society who are uniquely and disproportionately impacted. And we see, in particular, there are too many veterans who do not have a place to call home. Our estimates are as high as 2,600 veterans across Canada are experiencing homelessness. This is unacceptable to me. We're dealing with people who have been willing to risk their lives in service of their country. And in a country as wealthy as Canada, if we can afford to send our citizens to war, we can afford to take care of them when they come home. When I think about what people were willing to give, the least that we should give back is to ensure that those who've served Canada have their basic needs met. And that's why we created a program specifically to address homelessness amongst veterans, the Veterans Homelessness Program. It's important that we put resources behind our commitments to veterans. It's not enough simply to say thank you for your service. It's not enough just to go to the cenotaph on Remembrance Day. We actually have to put our money where our mouth is. We have to create programs that will directly improve the quality of life that people get to enjoy at the time that their tour is ended. This fund comes with a $79.1 million contribution, not to have the government send cash to people in need, but to support organizations who know where the solutions exist in their communities on the ground. I'm so pleased to share that today we are supporting 2 Nova Scotia-based organizations with a contribution of $6.7 million to help those organizations who help veterans find housing solutions. And I think this would be a great time. And while I thank you for your applause, please know that the groups that deserve your applause are Vets Canada and Landing Strong. The work that they do is absolutely incredible. I've had the opportunity to meet Jim and Debbie on a couple of occasions, walk through your old facility, and to see that you're expanding to the new facility is incredible. But the work that you do to help people find housing in a community where housing is hard to come by is extraordinary. You're dealing with people who often have underlying issues that complicate their lives beyond the housing challenges that they experience, and I want to say thank you sincerely for the work that you do. Similarly, Landing Strong, the work that you do to be able to integrate people into communities, learning a little bit about the trauma-informed expertise that you have to help people overcome illnesses related to their service. It makes me very proud to be Canadian, to know that there are people who are looking out for those who've looked out for us. When I see the work that you're actually going to be able to do, Vets Canada receiving $5.1 million to help with rent supplements, to help close the gap between what a person can afford and what's available, making sure that you're helping people find temporary accommodations, covering some of the moving costs, but more than just directly impacting the cost of housing, you're also placing those wraparound services in place. What I see when you're able to use these funds to provide secure counseling, mental and physical health supports, and ensuring that people are developing the life skills necessary so they can stand on their own 2 feet, I see real value that the organization's providing. With Landing Strong, the work that you're able to do, including putting programs in place that focus on that community integration, seeing that you have financial aid for housing, and focusing on the whole person's ability to recover from service-related injuries and illnesses, it's extraordinary. And to back that work that you do with $1.5 million is the kind of thing that I know is going to provide value to people in need. Il est essentiel de lutter l'itinérance avec les vétérans et vétéranes. C'est très important pour protéger les Canadiens qui sont plus vulnérables, incluant à chercher des solutions pour trouver du logement pour ces personnes. Ce n'est pas possible pour résoudre la crise du logement si les personnes continuent de dormir sans une maison, sans du logement. We have to make the investments necessary to solve these problems, and today brings us one step closer. But today's announcement is not about the fund that the government puts in place. It's about the work that the organizations are doing to help vulnerable people who deserve our support because they helped us in our time of need, and it's time we help them in theirs. I want to say thank you, congratulations to the organizations, and I am so looking forward to seeing the help that you're going to provide to the people who need it. Congratulations.
Thank you so very much, Minister Fraser, for that wonderful news, and for actually being quite kind to Daryl and I when you alluded to advocacy on behalf of Vets Canada. He didn't use the word pestering, but I feel that we bordered on pestering quite considerably because we did, and Lena was part of that, and then Daryl Sanson was an absolute bulldog with this file for many, many years. So he's unable to be here today, but I know that he's here in heart, and he's probably, if there's a virtual segment, he's probably following it right now on Zoom or something. Anyway, now I would like to call upon the Honourable Ginette Petitpas-Taylor, Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defence.
Thank you so much, Darren. Bonjour tout le monde. Quel plaisir d'être ici avec vous aujourd'hui. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real honor and privilege to be here with all of you. Darren, it's always wonderful to be in your beautiful riding and always wonderful to meet and to work with my colleagues from Nova Scotia, all of you. I have to say that when I became the Minister of Veterans Affairs, I also heard from a lot of you with respect to the wonderful work that's being done here in the province of Nova Scotia. And I'm really thrilled and honored to be here and supporting my friend and colleague, Sean Fraser, for this really important announcement as he's indicated. Debbie is in the back of the room. Debbie and Jim, thank you so much again for hosting us today in what is going to be a beautiful facility. We can feel it already. And thank you so much for Landing Strong for being here today as well for this really important announcement. As Sean indicated, the celebration today is about the work that you do day in and day out, and we are very pleased to be able to support the work that you do, the very important work that you do in supporting our veterans. As Sean indicated as well, our government's position on homelessness has always been very clear. Every Canadian deserves a safe and affordable place to call home. That's why Minister Fraser has been advancing Canada's housing plan and bringing the federal government back into a leadership role when it comes to housing in Canada. This includes supporting those who are experiencing homelessness and helping them find a safe and affordable place to call home, and also making sure that they can access the support and resources that they need in their time of need. Au cours de la dernière année, j'ai parcouru le pays pour entendre des témoignages des vétérans et vétéranes. Je dois vous dire, j'ai été dans des régions rurales, dans les régions du nord du Canada, ainsi que dans des grandes villes. Je peux vous dire qu'il n'y a pas deux histoires qui sont uniques quand on parle des vétérans. For some, life after military is a smooth transition, while others, as we know, face challenges. And unfortunately, sometimes these challenges are very complex, and a veteran may find themselves precariously housed. Since 2015, Veterans Affairs Canada has created new programs to help some of our most vulnerable veterans. And I'm thinking of a few examples of programs that have been created since 2015. One being the Veterans Emergency Fund. So for those who aren't aware, when veterans are facing some challenges, they can access some emergency funds through Veterans Affairs Canada. We've also put in place a new mental health benefit. When veterans are applying for mental health care, they can receive immediate assistance when it comes to mental health services. Or supporting organizations on the ground who open doors to community, educational, or volunteer opportunities to help veterans find a renewed sense of purpose. And again, we've recently closed an application process for the Veteran and Family Wellbeing Fund, and I'm certain that probably some of you have applied for some funding through that stream. But today's program is another tool in the toolbox to help these individuals find a new way forward. Canada's veterans have made tremendous sacrifices, and it is our responsibility to make sure that we are there for them in their time of need, to provide them with the support and care that they need. Our government launched the Veterans Homelessness Program because the reality is that one veteran experiencing homelessness is one too many. Le programme de lutte contre l'itinérance chez les vétérans fournit des fonds à des organisations à travers le pays. Pour numéro 1, livrer des suppléments de loyer et de soutien pour aider les vétérans qui font face à l'itinérance. Numéro 2, améliorer leur capacité à servir les vétérans et de financer des projets de recherche qui aideront à mieux comprendre les défis auxquels les vétérans y sont confrontés. As indicated, homelessness is complex, and each situation requires a different approach. With projects with Vets Canada and Landing Strong, we are supporting unique projects that will make a huge difference in the lives of veterans. By working together to end chronic veteran homelessness, we are not just providing a roof over a veteran's head, we are removing a fundamental barrier to their well-being. Lorsque les vétérans sont logés, ils participent activement à la vie de leur communauté en apportant leurs compétences, leur expérience et leur esprit d'initiative. It's about creating an environment where veterans can thrive and continue to give back, just as they always have. Once again, I simply want to take a moment to thank our two organizations today. We look forward to the work ahead, and again, happy that we are able to be a small contributor to the important work that you're doing within our community. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Minister Petitpas Taylor. Next up, Deb Lowther. Deb, I had said earlier that Vets Canada is near and dear to my heart, and now you are only about a mile away from me. You also live on the same street, in the same neighborhood. Our kids, this is a tight community. Our kids hang out together, and when their parents are away, they party at their house, and when we're away, I don't like the idea of thinking about that. But Deb, why don't you come up and say a few words about some of the important things that you and Jim have done.
Minister Fraser, Minister Petitpas Taylor, MP Fisher, and guests, good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. As an organization whose sole purpose is to provide aid and comfort to Canadian Armed Forces and RCMP veterans who are homeless, at risk of becoming homeless, or otherwise in crisis, we could not be happier to be standing here today to talk about a veterans homelessness program. The process to get here was long and arduous, and I'm sure we drove Minister Fraser and his staff crazy along the way, Darren as well, for that matter. And I'm glad you used the term pester, because I will assure you that the only reason Darren and Daryl pestered you folks is because we were bordering on harassing him. So that's all on us. Jim and I never intended to start a national organization. However, in 2010, we identified a gap in services and realized that veterans were slipping through the cracks. While volunteering at a local Sunday supper for those less fortunate, Jim encountered 4 veterans who were experiencing homelessness. In our efforts to find help for them, we discovered that aside from Veterans Affairs Canada, there were no supports available specific to veterans. Having seen the problem, we couldn't unsee it and felt an obligation to do something. So we started a small grassroots movement here in Halifax, which quickly spread across the country and organically grew to become the Vets Canada that we are today. For a long time, we, along with Veterans Affairs, were the only organizations focused on veterans homelessness. Fast forward to 2024, and a number of other groups have dipped their toes into the veterans homelessness pool, and the government has acknowledged the issue by launching this veterans homelessness program. So I'd say we've come a long way. I'd like to share what this funding means to us as an organization, and more importantly, what it means to the veterans that we serve. For us as an organization, it means that we can continue to support veterans who have suffered and sacrificed so much for the rest of us. For the veterans we have the privilege to work with, it could mean the difference between life and death. For the veteran here in Nova Scotia who had been living on the streets and in encampments for 6 years, it means we've been able to get him into transitional housing with a solid plan for permanent housing on the horizon. For the veteran in Ontario, a single mother who was living in her van with her 3 children, it means she gets to keep her kids because she now has a safe, warm place to call home. For the young veteran in New Brunswick who was living in his car with his pregnant fiancée, it means that they were able to bring their baby home from the hospital to a real home. These are just a few of the situations that we deal with across the country every day. There are hundreds more, unfortunately. From the minute we signed our agreement with Infrastructure Canada near the end of June, and we were given the green light to implement activities under our program, we hit the ground running. And since that time, we've already identified and supported 34 veterans who are homeless or on a trajectory to become homeless. One component of the Veterans Homelessness Program that is new to us is the ability to provide rent supplements. In the past, we've been able to help veterans with arrears rent to avoid eviction, or we've been able to pay first month's rent and security deposit to help move a veteran into housing. But being able to provide ongoing supplements is a game changer. The housing crisis and inflation have impacted all Canadians, and veterans are not exempt. Housing affordability has been an incredible barrier. Veterans who are paying more than 30% of their income on rent could be eligible for the rent supplement that we can now offer. In closing, I would like to thank the federal government, specifically Infrastructure Canada and Veterans Affairs Canada, for launching the Veterans Homelessness Program and providing us the funds so that we can continue to have an impact on the issue of veterans homelessness in Canada. I would also like to thank you all again for being here and remind you that if you do know of a veteran who is homeless or at risk, please send them our way. That's what we're here for.
Thanks so much, Deb. Really, really appreciate that. Next up, we're going to call upon Dr. Belinda Seagram to deliver remarks on behalf of Landing Strong.
Good afternoon. Minister Fraser, Minister Petitpas, MP Fisher, and members of our community. I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge Chair of our board, Sean Hiscott, and a couple members of our dynamic team, Deb Eaton, Pam Turcott, and Jen Whalen, who are here today as well. At Landing Strong, we are absolutely thrilled to be the recipients of funds which will allow us to tackle such a real and pressing issue facing our veteran community. Landing Strong is a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting veterans and first responders. Our facilities and clinically led programs are intended to provide a safe landing space for those who have been injured in service. Who can imagine that a Canadian military member or RCMP officer and their family might be facing housing and food insecurity following a life of service to country? This is a reality for many. When someone is living with PTSD or other operational stress injuries, they already feel isolated and alone. Home is their safe place. Imagine if this did not exist for them. How can recovery possibly happen when the basics of food and housing are not guaranteed? The Infrastructure Canada grant will allow us to ensure that those who have served are now being taken care of. No one is left behind. No one is left out in the cold. Since our inception in 2018, we've had over 200 veterans and first responders coming through our intensive programs. We're located in Windsor, Nova Scotia. We have virtual programs, and we have people driving across the province to come to participate. On average, people would do about 150 to 175 hours of programming as part of their recovery plan. It might be over the course of a year. And as they get stronger and have a firmer foundation under their feet, they might transition to some more community-based participation. So Landing Strong, our goal is to provide a safe place and community for those on the journey of recovery. When people call us, there is no wait list. We don't ask them, are you funded? If you call us and you meet our mandate, our doors are open for you. With a safety net in place, allowing stability in terms of basic needs, injured veterans will be able to access our intensive day treatment programs at a pace and a level that's comfortable for them. It's hard to talk about one's injuries and process past trauma if there's uncertainty about where to sleep or how to feed the family. With these funds, we can remove that level of concern, allowing people to immerse themselves in an unimpeded journey of recovery and self-care. We are so unbelievably grateful for the support from both Veterans Affairs and Housing Infrastructure and Communities. Thank you so much for believing in us and investing in our veterans and our first responders. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Seagram. You know, I look in the around the room and I think about how great things are when the people in the room choose to do good. This room is filled with people who have chosen to do good. Belinda, to you and your group, your board, HIS, nice to see you. Sorry, Mr. Hiscott, nice to see you here today in Dartmouth, your old hometown. You grew up less than a mile from here. Vets Canada, Deb and Jim, your whole group, you choose to do good and you do amazing things. Whether it's the nearly 1,000 or maybe over 1,000 volunteers across the country. It's amazing what we can do when we're surrounded by people who choose to do good.
Okay, final thoughts. War in itself is bad enough. It is a devastating thing, and mass destruction, huge losses of life on both sides until we as human beings decide to sit down and talk out our differences. It's like, the thing of it is it doesn't matter who won or lost the war. What does matter is the loss of life that could have been prevented by simply talking out our differences. When we look at different areas in the world, we look at Ukraine, we look at Gaza, we look at some of the things that have happened in Syria, that these recent events, these deaths, are totally preventable. They didn't have to happen. The buildings didn't have to be blown up. With people inside of them. That the shells didn't have to fall from the sky. The drones didn't have to travel around the planet with missiles and stuff. These are totally preventable deaths. Politics is in the end about talking to each other. That is what we elect these people to do, is to talk, is to work out policy, not send people abroad to kill or to be killed. The devastating effects of having taken a life affects these brave men and women who we're now finding on the streets. It isn't natural for another human being to kill another human being. It is traumatic and causes extreme stress. So why don't we put it to our politicians to find peaceful ways to negotiate our differences, to use words instead of bullets, to use sanctions instead of bombs, and to sit at the negotiating table until it's figured out. We don't need war. We need a better way to settle our differences. Thank you for listening to Policy and Rights today. I've been your host, Michael Clogs. Please find that subscribe button wherever it is. Give us some support. We need to be able to keep pushing at the government to find love and peace in our world. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.